Hello, Music Times viewers. This is Caitlin Carter, and I'm here in the studio with Matthew Fowler, an Orlando-based singer-songwriter who just released his debut album, Beginning. Welcome.
Thank you very much for having me.
So, for our viewers who don't know so much about your career, can you give us a brief history and kind of tell us how you got into music and
Sure.
where you are now?
When I was 14, I got a guitar for my birthday. It's a Yamaha guitar. I have it with me, and I'll play some songs on it, I'm
Nice.
sure. Since then, I've just been playing, and I learned how to taught myself how to play guitar, and I started writing. And when I graduated high school, instead of going to college like a responsible person should, I took some time off, and I recorded an album in kind of like haphazardly. I borrowed a bunch of equipment and learned how to use all the equipment, and recorded an album with some friends, and
Learned how to be a producer as well.
yeah, and I didn't even realize at the point, at the time I did it, what that even was.
Yeah.
And now that I've been in it for a little bit longer, I realize that they have, they actually do quite a bit. So
Yeah.
it was kind of this, this thing that I always wanted to do. I was always, as soon as I started playing guitar, it was definitely the natural progression of what, when you play a show and people are cheering and you play your own songs, there's like, no way, I don't know how anybody would want to do anything else.
Mm-hmm.
So, that's kind of been my path ever since.
Nice. And so you started writing for this album when you were 14, right?
Yeah.
Or some of the songs on the album were from...
Yeah. So one in particular was like one of the first songs I ever wrote. So the album that I put out kind of spanned, those formative years of songwriting, and then a couple later ones as well. So it was kind of, I had a lot of songs that I thought were good enough to put on a record that so I did.
So did you, for those songs that you wrote early on, did you go back and kind of I guess with your more mature brain and
Right.
musical abilities, go back and change a lot, or did you try to kind of keep that innocence of how you kind of were back when you first wrote them?
Well, a little bit of both, actually, because even now that I've been playing the songs more frequently than I ever have, before I put the album out, the songs change just naturally. I don't listen to my own album very much.
So you're not strictly, you're just playing it.
No.
however
Oh
you
yeah,
feel.
yeah, very much so. I don't. I try not to get tied down by having to play everything the same way. Whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I like, especially in live shows. I mean, that's part of the reason I love live shows is that you never know what's going to happen. You never know what they're going to do. So I like going to a show where I know the album back and forth, and I notice little changes here and there that they make, and it's usually for the better, because they've had more time to kind of sit with the song and be more comfortable with it.
Yeah.
And so I feel like now I've been able to really be more comfortable with those songs, and because I know them, I don't have to think about the songs. I can just kind of lose myself into them, I guess, if that makes sense, in a
definitely.
super pretentious way. But
Yeah, well, you let them kind of become what they are, in the moment.
exactly. It's all about the moment. It's all about the conviction of it.
Yeah, well, and that's why there's live versions of albums.
Exactly.
And,
That's
but you
exactly.
recorded your album live.
Yeah.
So talk a little bit about that recording process.
So my parents are. My dad is a chef. He does catering back in Orlando, and so they have kind of like this separate kitchen that they do all their catering stuff out of, because by law you have to have a separate kitchen if that's another thing.
Yeah.
So that was one of the only spaces that was quiet, that I can make a bunch of noise in and not have anybody really bother me.
Mm-hmm.
So that's pretty much the reason why we chose to do it there. And it was me and a couple other musician friends that just happened to kind of be around. My friend Kyle played bass on the album, and he was the one who pretty much introduced me to everybody else who played on the album.
Mm-hmm.
And I would just, say, Kyle, I'm looking for a piano player. He's like, oh, my friend Tana plays piano.
Nice.
Cool, have her come over. And
So
it
is there
just
kind of
happened
like
to
a
work
music
out.
scene there?
Yeah, well, in Orlando there's a music scene. Everyone that I played with were all...
Like a local, I guess, from where, exactly you live in Orlando. Or how, I
Yeah,
don't know.
I mean, the
I
music
know,
scene...
the, Disney World side of it. I don't know, the...
Right, that's a whole different thing. I mean, there's people who play for Disney that are just phenomenal musicians.
Uh-huh.
I mean, because that's how they make their living.
Yeah.
They're older
So there's a
guys
lot of
and
people just flown in kind of for that purpose there. And then
Well, yeah,
you have
there's a
your
lot of
local-
session musicians, but I don't, at the time I was like 18, 19, so I didn't know, I couldn't get into the bars where the bands that I liked were playing because I
Mhm.
couldn't get into them.
Yes.
So, and I couldn't really, hang out with them because I didn't have any way to get onto the shows because I didn't have any recorded music. So it kind of all fell back into this thing. So I took some time and I, bought this kind of, can I curse? I don't know.
Yeah.
That's shitty. I bought this really shitty program called Mixcraft. And I'm so sorry if Mixcraft sees this. You guys did really great work for me, but but it was it was a tough program to learn on, and yeah, we just set up a couple microphones, and that was pretty much it. We just played it over and over again. And what was going back to what you were saying before about the songs evolving.
Mm-hmm.
I'd never played any of them with more than just myself.
Yeah.
So
Well,
really,
yeah.
when that came into play, when people started playing with me, it was the first time that I was getting to see what my songs can transform into with more than just me and a guitar.
No, I recorded an EP back in college, and I remember that same thing, like hearing your song when you have like
It's
cello
crazy.
added to it, or
It's
this
crazy,
or that, and you're like,
yeah.
oh my gosh. And it kind of takes the pressure off of just,
Definitely.
you and your
Definitely.
guitar.
Definitely.
So-
It was more fun. I
Mhm.
felt like I had, I could objectively look at it a little bit better because when it's just you, there's like one or two tracks on the album that are just me and a guitar.
Mhm.
But when there's more stuff going on, I don't have to be all self-conscious about my performance as much.
Yeah.
I can
Just focus on the music.
focus on the music objectively.
Yeah.
As opposed to be all wrapped up in my own, self-doubt and all that stuff, which is
Yeah,
part
which
of-
is like
part of
part
it.
of being a musician.
right.
So when you were choosing your songs, since you had started writing, like I'm sure you had like kind of a big body of work, I assume, from like when you were younger to now. Like
Yeah.
how did you kind of choose like what was going to be your like, entrance into the,
That's a good question.
do you like lean more towards stuff that you wrote later on? Because
It's a little bit of everything. It's kind of it was kind of once I started thinking about what songs I really liked the most out of the ones that I did, it kind of all just kind of came into play. There
Mhm.
towards the end, I mean, maybe there were like a core of like 4 or 5 songs that I knew I wanted to have on there, and then I had another list of however many songs that I weren't I wasn't sure
see
about.
how they were going to develop.
And so we kind of did a couple things with, I'd play them for like Kyle and some of the other people playing and just get the, the vibe of it. And, like for instance, like the first 2 songs on there are called, another kind of pretentious move, I guess, Leaving Home Open Road and then Leaving Home Telephone Calls.
Mhm.
That was at one point like one kind of slow, long song. And then I thought it would be cool to kind of, cut it in half and then maybe work with them on separate pieces, but in the same concept. So there was a lot of just like staying up really late with a pot of coffee and like just brooding, a lot of
Yeah.
brooding. I grew my beard out and my hair was all long. I didn't take showers.
You're like, I'm going to be that mountain man,
Yeah,
folk
exactly,
guitar man,
yeah,
and
yeah,
just
pretty
like
much.
get
I would just kind
into
of
the
hang out
grooviness.
and write a whole bunch of different ideas and all that kind of stuff. Like even to the like the order of the album, I was really conscious because like back in high school, I was like that dude who made a bunch of CDs for people or whatever. So I wanted to have it kind of flow to it and this and that. And so I put a lot of thought, I put a lot of work into it, put a lot of thought into it.
Nice. And so you were just on tour. What, like, I guess have your songs kind of evolved since? Because I know you did an EP as well with Reggie.
With
where
my
you were
friend
on-
Reggie, Reggie Williams.
And so you put out
We put out this EP called
like
Bring
a
a Friend
separate
EP.
EP. Yeah.
So that came afterwards.
After the album came out.
Yeah.
And so is that just for the tour or like?
Yeah, that was for the tour because we have. He's another Orlando musician
Mhm.
that I just became really good friends with, and we have different styles, and we both have like I had Beginning out for a little bit, and he has an EP that he's had out
Mhm.
for a little while, and we both had a couple new songs that we wanted to do something with, but not enough songs to maybe put on another album.
Yeah.
Full album. So we decided to.
So just things you were collaborating together with as you're
Yeah,
touring, and
yeah.
what kind of came naturally. I have 2 musicians on the road.
Yeah, kind of. I mean, we like he had some songs that he'd written, and I had some songs that I'd written that were new that we had been playing for a little bit as well, and we wanted to have a new capacity to let people, hear those songs.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, I like the idea of us, making it into, more of a collaboration as opposed to just going on tour. I like that aspect of just like, it shows that we were really
Reminds me of the Big Easy
together on
Express.
tour. Yeah, it's back in those days, and I guess like my kind of thought of it is like I grew up in Orlando, and there's like a really big punk scene in Orlando, so I really like the fact that like all those punk bands who go on tour with each other, they all do like split EPs and put out these cool things that are just like kind of one-off things, and so I thought it would be kind of cool to do something like that.
Nice. So then, what have been some of your biggest challenges, I guess, breaking into the industry now? Like, for a musician who's coming up right now in the current state of the industry, what are you struggling with?
Well, that's a good question. Well, I mean, nowadays there's a lot of people. There's a lot of people doing what I'm doing, and there's a lot of people who are really, really good. So it's not so much as, I mean, it's always been a challenge. I'm sure that even 20 years ago, 30 years ago, it was still a challenge.
So is it mostly the saturation of just how many, or like, getting people to your shows, or?
I mean, a little bit of everything. A little bit of everything. I mean, there is sometimes there is it's harder to get people out the door sometimes these days, because they don't always need to. I think that sometimes just by listening to stuff on YouTube or that kind of thing, it's while it's really supportive. I mean, if people aren't coming out to shows, it's hard to for me to make money.
Yeah.
And then it's hard for me to to tour, and it's hard for all that other stuff. So I think
and that's where you make money these days, is touring more than streams,
well, yeah.
album sales. It's
Yeah,
like that's
definitely.
kind of
Definitely not streaming, at least not this one.
Yeah.
That's not. I mean, I think I got like $50 the other day for like a month or 2 months or something, which is great.
It's
but
not nothing, but
it's not nothing, but
not gonna pay the rent.
Right. But I mean, challenges. It's just
It's just the grind.
It's just the grind.
Yeah.
It's just the grind, and that's not necessarily awful. I mean, I love it. Traveling and playing shows. That's exactly why I got into this. More so, almost for the recorded music. I just like I like being. I'm in New York City right now. I mean, that's awesome. What other job do I get to? And I say job loosely.
Yeah.
But what other job do I get to go?
A calling, rather.
Well, I mean, job. Yeah, I don't have like a salary or anything like that. But what other job do I get to go and see? From big cities to New York to little towns like Columbiana, Alabama. That most people never go to. So I get to meet all these cool people and do that kind of thing. But I mean, in challenge-wise, I guess that would be it. I mean, there's a lot of people, and the thing is, there's not a lot of bad people. There's some great people out there, and they're all trying to do this thing. And so it's I think it's all about just consistency. Keep doing your thing, doing it as best as you can, and what's meant to be is meant to be, and what isn't. So I mean, I'm going to try my best, and no matter what happens, I'm going to keep doing it. So that's the whole point.
And so what's next for you?
Well, I'm here up north. I got on this show in Massachusetts, opening up for this guy Sean Rao. Sean Rao or Sean Rowe, I'm not sure how to pronounce it.
Any new music? Like, are you kind of gonna ride this out for a while? I'm assuming you probably are writing music all the time. As a songwriter.
I'm hoping in 2015. I want to put another record out this year, but my plan is to really, really focus on it. I haven't had a place. There have been very few places in the last couple months where I've kind of had my own space to really, put the guitar out and put all my papers around and like lock the door and not talk to anybody for a couple days. So that's kind of what I'm hoping to do more this year, my New Year's resolution or whatever, to really focus more on writing. Because before, writing was much more of a
hobby.
Well, it was just kind of in the moment. It was just I didn't plan for it. So most of the songs that I've written are just kind of like, I was in the shower and singing and
you didn't sit down as a project.
Exactly. They were just kind of like
moments of inspiration.
Exactly, which is great because I always felt out of that I got my best work. But at the same time, I can't sit around forever.
Yeah. Well, and you don't know what would come necessarily since you haven't done a project just based on a specific amount of time.
Yeah. So I think this year I'm going to try and focus on just different ways to kind of delve into the creative writing process, and because it's always been lyrically based that takes me the longest. Like music-wise, I can you know, I fiddle around with guitar all day, but I'm really conscious of like what I write,
Mhm.
and I try to make that as honest with myself and as, you know, yeah, as honest with myself as possible. So I'm really critical of my own writing. So, yeah, that's what 2015 hopefully is gonna bring. I really want to put another record out, like a real one, like work on it, not have to do it in my kitchen.
Yeah. But
Like-
you like the live record. You like to record it.
Yeah,
live.
yeah. So I'm hoping to do as much of that as possible because you get the feel of it.
Yeah.
You know, when you're with a band and they're all looking at you and it's a live performance. That's where the most fun is, and that's where you get the most unexpected good things out
Yeah.
of it.
And a lot of energy.
Yeah,
That's
and
just
a lot
like
of energy.
organic that comes along.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's why you go see live music.
Yeah.
It's just you can't duplicate it. So we're gonna try.
Well, good luck.
Thank you very much.
And what will you be playing for us today?
That is a good question. I have no idea. Maybe a song called "Beginners," probably.
Okay.
And when I'm done with that one, I'll decide on what the next
All
one's
right.
gonna be.
Well, you guys be on the lookout. And don't forget to check out Beginner. And we will be playing your stuff here shortly.
Cool.
All right.